Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. My guest today is a lawmaker from the Venezuelan opposition party, Voluntad Popular. She is also the first transgender to be elected to parliament. This was back in 2015. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity for being here with you and in this audience.
I want to get to the political situation. It's been very tense for months, but it seems that Nicolas Maduro is now winning, that he's been able to withstand the pressure from Juan Guaido, member of your party, from the US, from the West, the sanctions, and now he has the upper hand.
To get rid of a totalitarian regime such as the usurpation regime of Maduro is very hard. It has been the same thing in many other countries where over the years you have had this kind of huge awful dictatorships, and it is necessary to understand that we cannot get rid of it without the help of the international community, but also with a strong internal movement. And we have it, and we are.
You still have it, because it seems that essentially there was this mobilization, there was this attempt to lure the military to essentially oust Maduro. It seems that this has now passed and that they're back in control.
The militaries are in control. They are highly corrupted people that are in charge also of all the affairs, the black affairs, such as deal with oil and gasoline and gold and diamonds and this kind of
but they have not abandoned Maduro.
They have not abandoned their money for the time being.
You think it's still possible? It seems Guaido is trying to find a way out. At the same time, we see some portions of the opposition negotiating with the Maduro regime. There was an announcement that actually the lawmakers from his party, the Chavista party, would go back to the National Assembly where you were elected and where the opposition has a majority. They had boycotted it. So it seems that there are some splits within the opposition.
One, they are not part. These groups are collaborationists. They are always had been collaborationists and still collaborationists, and they are very close to Maduro and were very close of Chavez in the past. But they exist as the Chavez exist, and as the government of Maduro exists, and as the government of Guaido exists. I mean, we have several realities, political realities. We cannot just close our eyes on them, and we have to accept that in this very complicated situation, we have to fight in favor of democracy, in favor of free elections, and to get rid of the awful dictatorship of Maduro.
Okay, but you were hoping essentially that the military would abandon him. As you said, maybe for their financial reasons, it's not happening. So what about dialogue? We know Norway attempted a dialogue. Is this still the favored option? Some in your camp are saying there's no way we should dialogue with a dictator. The only way is to push him out with U.S. help if needed.
The position of the President Guaido government is that there are means in order to get a result. And the result that we want is to get Maduro out of government, to get a government of transition and free elections, and that the parties, all the parties that had been illegalized during the past years are again legal and may be part of these elections.
It's through dialogue that you want to achieve it?
And one of the possibilities is a dialogue.
With Maduro?
Yes, with anyone. I mean, with the militaries. I mean, for me, the dialogue must include also the militaries, must include Maduro group, must include the several groups that are around Maduro, because Maduro, it's not a cohesive group, but it's mostly four groups that are or have different views even with regard to the government itself.
What about the U.S.? There was a lot of pressure from Donald Trump. His departed National Security Advisor John Bolton was very vocal. There is this notion that despite speeches and so on, the U.S. is preoccupied with something else, especially now Donald Trump with his re-election campaign, and that the U.S. support for the opposition is not as strong as it was several months ago.
No, the support is still very strong and has not decreased. To the opposite, it has increased in the number of sanctions, increase in the number of people that are included in the sanctions, including members of the families of the highly corrupted Chavist groups, including their shell companies. Thus, these measures are taken, what is not a reality, and we have to know that, is that a military intervention is not probable in this moment.
Right. There were some pictures that came out recently of Juan Guaido with members of a Colombian paramilitary group, Los Rastrojos. Probe has been opened, another probe, I should say, in Venezuela about this. He said he didn't really know who he was. What do you make of this? I mean,
when you are a politician and you are in the streets, and Guaido, it's every day in the street. And
it was not in the street. This was in the forest in Colombia.
Anywhere. I mean, you go, and you take pictures with people. You don't ask for them to produce your curriculum vitae.
Someone with a gun as well. It's not an issue.
It might be an issue for those who do not understand the situation of passing through the border via this, what we call Caminos Verdes, the green roads, the green paths, which are not the regular borders. Therefore, they are very dangerous. They are occupied by several guerrillas. Therefore, if you are intending to pass through these Caminos Verdes, you need certain protection, and that is what the Maduro's regime is taking as a flag in order to discredit Guaido, which is not
because what the argument is, Guaido is trying to overthrow the regime by force. He tried in Caracas when he came out that early morning, and now he's trying with the help of Colombian groups.
The propaganda. Well, as in the case of Cuba, the Venezuelan government is very good at producing propaganda, and this propaganda is very strong.
Right. I want to get to you personally. You're a member of the party of Leopoldo Lopez, who was in jail under house arrest. He escaped that famous night a few months ago when there was this call for the military to oust Maduro. He's now in the residence of the Spanish ambassador in Caracas. But he's someone who asks you to run. And he's described by the regime as a fascist. And given your personal trajectory, your name was Tomas Mariano Adrian Hernandez before. This, for you, shows that he's not a far-right party, and that, to the contrary, the regime is not tolerant with minorities.
Voluntad Popular is member of the International Socialist. It's a center-left party. It has always been, and all the members of the board, we recognize ourselves as a center-right, center-left members. And Leopoldo himself is very progressive person. To the opposite, the case of the Chavez party, Chavez himself and Maduro had been always against diversity, in particular sexual diversity. And Venezuela is now one of the very few countries in the region that doesn't have equal rights. In this moment, Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, and somehow Bolivia have equal rights, and Venezuela, none. So this is the sign that the militarism, and on the one hand, and the excessive participation of evangelical churches might prevent equal rights.
Right, because there is this notion in France, in Europe, to say on the left or on the far left that actually this is a progressive regime when it comes to minority rights, the LGBT and so on. You're saying no. And what you told me is that
China,
on your documents...
Look at Russia, because of many other various reasons. Look at North Korea, or look at Cuba. They don't have equal rights, nor in Venezuela.
Are you still struggling in your everyday life in Venezuela as a transgender?
Yes. For certain, there is no heaven in earth for trans people, but there are places who are much more better than others. And in this case, there are other places that are worse. And Venezuela might be one of the worst places in the world for LGBTI people.
Including in parliament, are you still...
No, in the parliament, no, because people do not think of me as a trans people, as a trans person. They just think of me as a politician, as a woman that is working in favor of all kind of rights, including women's rights, minority rights, people with disabilities, and of course in favor of freedom, in favor of liberty, and in favor of get rid of this horrendous dictatorship we have been facing the past years.
Okay, Tamara Adrian, thank you very much for coming on the France 24 set. And thank you for watching this interview. Stay tuned for more news.
France 24, 4 news channels in 4 languages, 430 journalists, 35 nationalities, 160 bureaus around the world, a global reach. 385 million households in over 180 countries can watch France 24. 80 million viewers watch the channel every week, and the numbers are constantly growing, with audience multiplied by 2 in 5 years. France 24 Online is also forging ahead. Over 15.5 million visits a month on France24.com. With 59.8 million videos viewed online, France 24 is a leader on YouTube, while our 38.2 million Facebook and Twitter followers make us France's #1 channel on social media. To our constantly growing community of viewers, thank you.